Howdy folks, this is BelGeode, this is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is a test, otherwise known as one of my chill vids. Woohoo! So, no doubt you saw the first one that I put up for the new year, which featured the Fly Inside Bell 206. This time we got the same bird, but a different rendition. This is the Cowansim Bell 206, or more appropriately the Bell 206, what is it, the B3, so the B3 variant. Physically it looks like a Bell 206, so we're very used to what that looks like. It's a classic helicopter design, a JetRanger, and of course it's got the usual things that we've come to expect from Cowansim, in particular in X-Plane. This is, by the way, Cowansim's first helicopter brought to Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I gotta say, at least as far as the model and the textures, they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I would expect nothing less from Cowansim. That's just how Cowan rolls. And I am loving it. Look at this. Look at this. So you see that, right? All the hoses? That's physically inside the grill there. So we could like open that up and take a look at everything inside. Actually, I'm not even sure if you can open it up. I haven't tried it, but then you can always check the manual. It'll tell you if you can or cannot open it up. But it's just so incredible. Absolutely incredible. Their textures are immaculate, and I'm glad to see Cowan finally coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator, because this makes it worth it. And of course, I know that Cowan is working on bringing other helicopters in, most notably the MD-500, and I'm kind of hoping, hint, 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 that the venerable 222 will eventually make its way in. That would be great. I'm just saying, Josh. I'm just saying. But suffice to say, I'm loving this helicopter. This is really cool. I've spent a lot of time flying the Fly Inside version. I haven't spent nearly as much time flying the Cowansim version, primarily because I wanted to get through whatever technical issues I was having with the sim that was causing stutters and so on and so forth. So Fly Inside was my guinea pig for that. Cowan, I guess, is reaping the benefits of my going through all of my testing. So what I'm doing for this particular recording, just like full disclosure here, you know the pop-ups will usually pop up at the bottom. So for this particular video, I am offline. I am not online. Anything online in Microsoft Flight Simulator is currently turned off, so you'll notice the clouds are not moving. I've got a preset weather scattered with a little bit of rain falling, which is pretty much typical for this area. There's no real wind to speak of. You can see the windsock is just kind of dangling there. It's really not blowing that heavily. But yeah. And the whole purpose of that is to try to minimize as much as possible whatever issues I was having with stuttering. So hopefully that will come through in this video. I also want to point out that I've never noticed before these little puddles that appear on the ground when it's rainy. So the rain just stopped, like just before I pushed record. But you can see the puddles remain, which is pretty cool. And incidentally, before I forget, we are at a custom scenery. This is Emerald Scenery Designs, BC Helicopters, which is based just to the north of Abbotsford Airport. I believe the ICAO code is CYXX. That's Charlie Yankee X-Ray X-Ray. You can see we've even got some little vineyards back there. Look at that. Pretty cool stuff. This scenery is free. You can get it from the Emerald Scenery Design website or from flightsim.to. The links, of course, will be in the video description below, as well as the PAYWARE link for this helicopter. All right, so what are we doing today? We're just going for a quick flight. We're going to do exactly what we did with the other Bell 206. We're going to do a cold and dark startup. I will point out whatever differences you may need to know if you do decide to get both of these helicopters. And folks, I do recommend that you get both of these helicopters. They're different approaches to doing the same thing, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it to have both of them. Cowansim, you'll notice, has those little float thingies. They're not currently active just yet, but there are plans on making floats active, as well as having like an agricultural sprayer variant. So if we wanted to, we could, spray pesticides, hopefully organic pesticides, on these grapevines back here. But that's all stuff that's coming in the future. Cowan's aware of it. Right now, post-launch or post-release of this helicopter, Cowan's primary concern is making sure that all the bugs are taken care of. There are a few, but to me, they're kind of minor. We'll see as we get into it. But before we do anything else, naturally, I've got to go through the typical external camera shots just to kind of show you what you also get with this, if you're like me and you like to do the little cinematic thing. So, first view. This is our first view. Not what I would pick for a first view, but it's good enough. It is the starboard side of the helicopter, or the right side of the helicopter, so you can see the skids there, you can see all that good jazz, and you can see just how clean and beautiful these textures are. Wow, it's just amazing. And by the way, there's over 70 textures in this thing. I'm not kidding. Look it up yourself. When you purchase this helicopter and you're in the screen where you select which aircraft you want to fly, take a look at the liveries page. There's a ton of liveries in there. It's nuts. That's Cowan for you. He loves his liveries. I'm still waiting for a personalized BelGeode purple livery, though. This is as close as we're going to get. And then we have the second view, which is the opposite side, the port side. So you can see we're pretty much in the same position over the horizontal stabilizer here. Pretty stock standard. Nothing really crazy or outrageous, but that's okay. For static cams, I like them to be simple like this. And then the third view is, of course, the infamous BelGeode landing cam. Now, I do have to confess that I have tweaked the cameras.cfg file. I will be forwarding that file to Cowansim to include in a future update, because some of these cameras were a little bit off-centered and kind of skewed, which it doesn't really matter if you're flying 2D, but for the vast majority of you that are more than likely watching this video, you're VR pilots, so you kind of want to have the kind of views that we would expect to find. So straight ahead is perfect. If we need to look to the left or to the right, guess what? We can do this. But we need to have things straight ahead, especially when it comes time to like recenter yourself. This is why we want to have things like that. And then finally we have this view, which I have modified even further because I didn't like the fact that I was literally right behind the beacon light. So I've pushed it back a little bit further, but unfortunately I forgot to load up the updates that I have made to the cameras.cfg. So this is what we've got right now, which is also modified. So we're going to put it on the BelGeode landing cam. We're going to keep it there until after we have taken off. And we'll check out beautiful British Columbia. Let's go ahead and hop in the cockpit, though. We'll get our door closed, and we'll get this helo started. Okay, so now we are in the cockpit. You can see our door is open. Just like I did with the fly inside version, we're going to head to the back seat and kind of check out what has been done there. I will say, however, that these David Clarks are a perfect fit for my ear. This would definitely fit over my ear. And from my understanding, I believe Fly Inside does have an update either pending or already out that has improved that. But it's good to see that Cowan got that correct straight out of the gate. All right. So in the back, we're not missing a lot of the little extra niceties, so there's no card or anything like that. But do we really need that kind of stuff? No, it's fluff, but it's useful. You know, it's stuff that adds to it as far as curb appeal or eye candy, but it doesn't really do anything for the simulation of the helicopter itself, so we can live without it. But I will confirm that the doors do open, so there we go. And I will also confirm that it does in fact feel cramped back here, as you would expect if you were sitting in a Bell 206 and you're 6 feet tall. Yeah, pretty cramped. Pretty cramped. And remember, folks, no smoking. All right, so we're going to head back to the front. And we're going to go ahead and close our pilot side door. Now, with this particular scenery, this is, I believe, all you get is this airport. I was under the impression that this had multiple helipads in there, But what we're going to do is we're going to fly around the area, and we might try some shenanigans. And by that, I mean maybe landing on top of buildings and stuff like that. But we will definitely be coming back here and at least attempting to land on this H where we're sat right now. All right. Before we go ahead and get the helicopter started, one very important thing that I need to tell you. The main difference between Cowansim and Fly Inside. Fly Inside does their own thing when it comes to flight modeling. It's their own system with the heli manager and all of that stuff. Cowansim has opted to use the default Microsoft Flight Simulator flight model for helicopters. Now, we could debate all day long as to which is better, which is more realistic, which is more accurate. I'm not here to give you any of that crap. What I will do is I will point out some of the key differences. Because Cowan is using the default Microsoft Flight Simulator flight model, an important distinction with the throttle needs to be made. The throttle currently does not work with key or button binds. You have to use your mouse. You will notice it says throttle idle. That is where it defaults. It does not default to the throttle off. The idle release switch does work. It's currently set to the released position. So if we wanted to, we could roll the throttle off, and that would be great. But because of the way that this helicopter is, which is going to require some more tweaking and updates from Asobo, when we go to start this thing, we want to leave it here in idle. You will not get a hot start, but it will allow you to successfully start the helicopter. Now, the alternative, if you decide to roll the throttle off, as I believe you are supposed to, and then roll it to idle after you've hit the engine start, what'll happen is, since you have to use a mouse, it takes a little while for you to actually get it to the proper position, and sometimes the starter itself will shut itself down, so you won't be able to start it. So I've found that just leaving it exactly the way it is once you spawn it in seems to be the best option for getting this thing started. All right, but with that having been said, let's go ahead and get some switches flipped. We want our battery switch flipped, and I'm using the physical switch as opposed to what my Virpil has set up, so that way I will leave the alternator in start. We're going to get some lights going, so anti-collision lights, which is basically our beacon, and we'll get our nav lights on. We do have instrument lights, so we'll go ahead and turn those up. And we even have LED lights. Now, there was an issue with the LED lights before where it was basically robbing you of all your FPS, but that issue has been solved in this updated version of the Cowansim 206 that I'm currently using. As before, we'll check our caution and warning lights. Yep, everything looks good. And a viewer on my previous video reminded me that I need to mute the horn after I've done my tests, just in case we get any other warnings during the startup process. So thank you very much for reminding me of that. I appreciate it. I'm going to check our clock. We're set to UTC. So we are 10:32 a.m. here in Canada. Fuel is already on and guarded. Fuel valve, you can see that there. And let me make sure that all of our circuit breakers and everything are in. Yep, fuel boost is in. Everything else is in. It all looks good. Rotor brake is off. You can see it is perfectly horizontal, which is where it should be. And I think that is about it. We're about ready for an engine start. All right, we'll leave our avionics off for the time being. But when it comes time to start this thing, it's really easy. Remember, we're not going to mess with the throttle just yet. So all we need to do is just hit the starter, and I usually do it for like 3 seconds. Until I can hear it start to wind up. There we go. 3 seconds, that's good. You'll notice our NG is coming up. And at 15%, it automatically kicks in with the throttle. Because remember, we set it to idle. Now, what I've been doing is, you see where it says idle release is set to released? I usually click that so that it says prevented. So that'll prevent me from accidentally rolling the throttle to the off position mid-flight. Unless, of course, I want to try a pop quiz with an auto rotation. I did not sign up for that today. All right, so we'll wait for everything to come to life here. Looking good, looking good. Incidentally, this little window does open, but it's a bit of a pain in the butt to use. You got to kind of pull your mouse up slightly. It does change the audio, but we're going to try and leave it closed here. So that will already attenuate our audio. You'll notice there's only one headphones there, because it is assumed we have the other one on. So that's why the audio may seem a little low in this video. It's because we're already attenuated. And of course, you just heard that the sound does change if you open the window. All right. You can, by the way, add a co-pilot to the left seat by simply adding the weight in the screen for weights and balances. And of course, that headset will disappear because the co-pilot will put it on. But we don't have Kara today, so we won't need that. All right, everything's looking good. Everything's in the green. We just need to get up to flight idle because you can see our rotor low RPMs going and our generator fail indicates that our generator's still off. So now we're going to use a mouse. We're going to use a scroll wheel to slowly but surely roll ourselves up to full throttle. And again, we're watching that center gauge. You see where the little blue icon is? Want everything up in the green arc. Just keep rolling that throttle in. Governor kicks in. Keeps us smack dab in the center of the green arc. Now, I have not noticed that I have to increase or decrease the governor RPMs. It seems to just track exactly where it should. So the adjustments that we had to make in the previous helicopter, we don't have to make in this one, is what I'm trying to say. All right, let's get our generator. Switch to that. We'll turn our avionics on. We'll turn our gyro on, and we'll also get a pitot heat on. Why not? Why not? So you'll see everything comes to life. We're squawking 1200. We're actually set to alt already. That's because I hit it before I started recording. So yeah, we're good to go. We're just waiting for the Garmins to come up. And then we'll set everything to its normal screen. Let's check our altimeter. Since I'm using a preset, the altimeter is by default set to 29.92, which is perfectly fine by me. Want a nice, easy day to fly here. We're going to hit enter on both of these GPSs. I do not have a flight plan in there, so we really don't need to worry about any of that. We're going to set this to enter. It's going to do its thing. We'll set the bottom one to enter, and that's going to do its thing. Now, you will also notice that this thing does have controls for HeliSAS, or Stability Augmentation System. Basically, that contributes to the autopilot. But there is no autopilot just yet. Why? Because Asobo hasn't given us an autopilot for helicopters. So, yeah. But once that is available, I'm pretty sure all Cowan has to do is just hook everything up and we will be good to go. But other than that, we're pretty much set to fly. The only other thing I need to do is make sure our landing lights are on. So I'm going to flip it to both. There we go. We'll make a quick look outside. We'll kind of do the drone cam thing and go around the helicopter before switching to the BelGeode landing cam and attempting to take off. Okay, everything looks good out there, so we're pretty much set for takeoff. And the same as with the other Bell, there are certain considerations you need to have whenever you start pulling the collective up. You're going to need some left pedal. You're also going to need a little bit of back and left cyclic. As far as the flight model differences between the two helicopters, as you're going to see, this one is slightly different from the flying side one, but also bear in mind the flying side one does have those settings to stabilize things a little. Even if you have it set to a little bit of stabilization, it is going to fly slightly different to what this one does. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's worse. It's just different. We'll leave it at that. All right, collective's coming up. Getting ready for a little bit of left pedal there. You can see the pedal starting to depress. And collective is almost up to about 50%. We should be getting light on the skids now. There we go. Yep, we're definitely light on the skids. Slowly bringing collective up. A little too much pedal. And there we go. We're starting to do the wibbly wobbly here. So you see what I mean? Immediately we start sliding a little bit to the right there, and we've got some left skid down, which is actually normal for helicopters. I'm not sure if it's normal for this particular helicopter, because as I mentioned in the previous video, I am not a real-life helicopter pilot. I am just a long-time virtual helicopter pilot. Of course, it could have something to do with a little bit of wind that we have too. But regardless, we seem to be up. We seem to be stable for the most part. We're kind of drifting back a little bit, but that's all right, because I'm going to put in some rotor trim, and that will get us pointing in the right direction. I'm going to ease off the pedal just a little bit here. You see we're just hanging by the rotors. All right, let's go over this vineyard here real quick, and then we'll check out the airport that we're near. You can see these little campers here. Incidentally, with this particular scenery pack, the campers are an additional freeware item that you will need to download if you want to be able to see them. It is optional. You don't have to have them, but it does help to sell the realism of this scenery, more so than just, you know, flying over vineyards and stuff. You can actually see that people do park campers and so on here. And then we got all these buildings here. Now the CYXX that I'm using is default, so even though we've got all of this stuff over here, which I believe is placed by this particular scenery package, it doesn't fully extend to the entire airport from my understanding. So a lot of the buildings that we'll see, like on that side, will be default Microsoft buildings, if I'm not too mistaken. I could be wrong. It's kind of difficult to tell in Emerald Scenery Designs little blurb that they have, but we can check it out, of course. And to do that, we're going to go back to the BelGeode landing cam. Yeah, call me crazy, but it does actually look like the entire airport is full of custom buildings, except for the ones like way in the back there. Those look a little too tall to be custom buildings. They might be default. But like this tower and everything here, this all looks like it is part of the custom scenery. I could be mistaken. If I am, then chime in the comments and let me know. But yeah, this looks a little too nice to be default Asobo stuff. We're gonna like go around here, harass the tower people. I'm sure they will absolutely love me. But this is a good way to also show off the flight model of this helicopter. You may have noticed that I did not do any videos on the default Bell 407 or the default Cabri. I don't really feel I need to. I think you all should already know what those helicopters are like because, well, they're default. You've all got them. Every single person who has Microsoft Flight Simulator has those helicopters already installed. But for stuff like this gives you a good idea as to how the Microsoft Flight Simulator flight model translates into a third-party helicopter. And so far, I gotta say, it does feel really good. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of rotor trim here because I do notice if I center the cyclic, I'm gonna get some altitude before I try this here. If I center the cyclic, you see what happens. We're going up and we're going to the right. So we need to add a little bit of left rotor trim and a little bit of forward rotor trim. So there we go. I am almost fully hands off here. I'm just basically giving it fingertip movements, which is actually how you fly a helicopter. But you can see we're slightly left skid down, but the pedals, I have those currently centered right now, so you can see as we gain airspeed, we're starting to weather vane a little bit. I'm giving it a little more left rotor trim and a little more forward rotor trim just to kind of ease it out. I'm not messing with the collective at all. I'm just letting her do her thing. And so far, she seems to be behaving. So with that having been done, let's go for a little fly around the area and really see what we can do with this bird. So I'm leaving the collective exactly as it is. You can see our speed right now is a little bit over 80 knots. There is some rain here and there in this area, but we're not going to worry too much about it. I may want to head over to that rainy patch though, because I'm pretty sure there are some tall buildings over there and we want to do some shenanigans because, well, it's me. Always have to do shenanigans. But we'll go to the outside view and we'll feature that top camera right behind the beacon light, so that way we can check out the beautiful British Columbia area. As I'm looking around, I'm trying to remember where the tall buildings were, but I think, yeah, that's what I thought. We went right past them all. It's difficult to see because it's spotty rain here, so not everywhere is completely visible. You can see the visibility just goes down to 0 there. Whew. But yeah, we're going to check out some of these taller buildings on this side of the city. So far, I have to say, once this helicopter is trimmed out, she flies amazingly well. And again, I am not going to compare it to Fly Inside because they are just simply different. One is neither better nor worse than the other. They just fly different. And if you know what you're doing in both helicopters, you really can have a very fun experience. And even to the point, as I've alluded to before, somewhat hands-free. Like just fingertip movements. That's all you need to make this thing do what it's supposed to do. And that feels great as far as I'm concerned. That is what helicopter flying should be all about. That's what makes it all worthwhile, and that's what makes it fun. I mean, it's well known that helicopters in and of themselves are difficult beasts to master. We all know that. We all know that. We all remember our first few tries at helicopters and how disastrous that was for us and anyone else virtually around us. But it's good to know that between Asobo doing their homework, and even though it's not perfect, but at least bringing to us the tools that developers need to add on to that and actually make helicopters a very viable part of the flight sim. Honestly, I know there are a lot of flight simmers out there. There's your airline pilots, there's your bizjet pilots, there's your fighter jocks, your helicopter rotor heads. You know, there's a lot of us out there and a lot of people to cater to, including those who only use the Xbox console as opposed to the PC crew. One thing I will say, the way that this sim has developed in the last couple of years that it's been out, the helicopter crew, I feel, are benefiting greatly from the state that this sim is in right now. Look at this. Just let the pictures do the talking. You see all this, right? I'm going low and slow. My speed is less than 80 knots, probably about 77-ish. I'm just flying around British Columbia here. We got some buildings over there. I might want to try and land on top of one of them suckers. Bear in mind the caveat that goes with that. I have no clue if these things are solid. None. None whatsoever. But yeah, look at all these neighborhoods. The houses look authentic. I don't know how much of this is default stuff and how much is included with the scenery pack. I want to say this is all default stuff. I want to say this is, you know, Microsoft doing. Microsoft Asobo. But yeah, look at that. That's just awesome. I don't care who you are. Flying around in a Bell 206 over this city is just amazing. In fact, if I could find a highway, we could probably pretend to be a traffic chopper. Except for the fact that I've got my vehicular traffic turned off, so traffic's looking good today if you're trying to get to work. Alright, I want to see if we can land on one of these buildings. I know I'm tempting fate here because there is a good possibility that this building is not solid. We might just fall right through it, but I want to try it. So I'm going to hit the force trim release. You'll notice the nose goes up. That's pretty clear indicator that force trim has been hit, or force trim release, I should say. And let me pick a suitable target. I'm thinking I may need to go to the BelGeode landing cam really quick to do some recon. Alright, I don't want to land on that one because that one has a gabled roof and that would not be ideal. This one appears to have something in the center of the spot where I could try to land, so I'm not about that life either. But that does bring to mind one important thing that I would like to see. I would like to see Asobo put in more default buildings with helipads. Is it realistic? That's debatable. It might be, it might not be, depending on what city you're in. But it would be nice to have. As it is, we don't even know if this building is solid, so we're about to test that theory. I am giving her a lot more collective here. You can see the roof is wet, so that's a good sign. I love those little AC units. Reminds me of my maintenance man days back in Florida. We used to have to replace AC units like that, and that was always a pain in the butt, let me tell you. But let's see if we can get her down without hitting anything. Bear in mind, this might not work. I am getting a little bit of ground effect. Ooh, okay. Not sure what's causing that. Is that the wind? That's a lot of ground effect, let me just tell you. Just make sure I'm pushed forward enough. There we go. There we go. Okay. We're down. Oh! Okay. I don't think this building is entirely solid. It felt like my skid was falling through the roof. Let's not try that again. That was a little rough. Not gonna lie, folks. That was a little rough. Not quite what I expected at all. I would love to see more hospitals. I know hospitals typically have helipads on the roof or maybe on the lawn in front. So that would be something that would be cool to see as well. But again, this is still the place that this sim is in right now. It is a really good place, and there is plenty of room for improvement. And now that helicopters are in there, I'm pretty sure that Asobo and Microsoft are going to start thinking about things like this that will basically be quality of life improvements for those of us who do enjoy flying in helicopters. And especially for you newbies out there that are new to flying helicopters, I think now is a great time to learn. Yes, they are challenging. Yes, there is plenty of resources out there that will help you learn what to do and what not to do is the most important part. But more importantly, it is fun. And especially if you're in VR, I'm going to tell you right now, flying in VR is the best way to learn how to fly these helicopters virtually. VR changes the game. When I can look down like this and accurately judge my distance to the roof, and I can see my rate of descent and adjust my collective accordingly, that to me makes it all worthwhile. You can feel the ground effect there, so that tells me this is solid. We're going to try landing again. Yeah, there is something not right about this. Hold on, let's go to the BelGeode landing cam real quick. Okay, so we're actually floating above the building. So the building is solid, but there is apparently some kind of bounding box. It looks like it's taking into consideration the lip of the building as the bounding box for the solid area of the building. Which is kind of strange when you think about it, but, you know, at least I can land on it. Hell of a lot better than I did on that last building. Oof. Alright, but I would say we've had enough shenanigans for the day, so we need to locate our airport and, of course, our heliport. I want to say it's over this way. So I have taken all of the trim out, so the force trim is effectively reset. So this means I need to give it a fair amount of forward cyclic in order to keep her level and going in the direction that I would like. I'm also giving it a little bit of left cyclic because remember, if I center her up, she's going to do that. And we don't want that. We don't want that at all. Well, we're going to go ahead and bring her in for a landing. I just need to locate where exactly we're supposed to land. There's the airport at least. My overall impression of the Cowan Sim, bearing in mind that Cowan is feverishly working on updates and he's just coming back from Christmas vacation with his kids, I'm really liking where this helicopter is at. The textures are absolutely amazing. Cowan, that's like a high point. Cowan is, to me, the Carenado of helicopters as far as texture quality goes. That is something I will never take away from Cowan Sim. They do textures right when it comes to helicopters. It's absolutely amazing. And as far as the performance that I'm getting, the performance in VR is really good. Again, not sure how it's translating to the actual video being recorded by my AMD Adrenaline or Relive, whatever you want to call it. Because, of course, I've got the image stabilization working, and whenever I turn my head, it does tend to stutter a little bit. But I can assure you, in the VR headset, if I were not recording anything to specifically put up on YouTube, it is liquid smooth. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And I think part of the reason why I'm getting this kind of feel with it, or performance with it, is because I'm currently set to offline. I don't know if that is an Asobo server issue or a Microsoft server issue, whatever the case may be, but flying offline, that seems to do the trick for these recordings. So it looks like going forward, when I do these videos, whether it's a chill vid or a full production video with all the music and everything, it looks like we're going to be flying offline. Because you'll notice we haven't had a single stutter as of yet. I'm going to go over these vineyards here. In fact, let's go to the BelGeode landing cam. We're going to land it this way. So there you have it, folks. This is the Cowansim Bell 206B3. Absolutely amazing bird, using a different approach to the same exact helicopter as compared to the last video. And again, just like I said in that first video, as far as comparing the two, I cannot with an honest heart tell you one is better than the other. They're both just different. I would highly recommend that you get both of them and feel the difference for yourself. Now, granted, with Cowansim, Asobo needs to do their homework to make it a little bit easier for third-party developers to actually work on. Like I said, one of the major things is that throttle right there. That's an Asobo stuff. We're going to chalk that up to Asobo voodoo. They need to fix their voodoo so that all the third-party developers can benefit from that. But aside from that, as I'm sure you have just seen, the flight model and everything is pretty dang good. I have zero complaints about flying this bird. It is pretty well done. So again, I'd highly recommend that you pick up both of these birds. So, that'll do it for me, folks. I am done. Thank you as always for watching. This has been BelGeode. I've been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we're here in British Columbia. The scenery that we've been using is by Emerald Scenery Design. It is freeware. Link, of course, will be in the video description below. And everything else around me has been default, with the exception of the stuff that's been added by this scenery package. The helicopter, I will remind you, is the Cowansim version of the Bell 206B3. And again, that is going to be linked in the video description below. Aside from that, if you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I will be back in the near future with some more Microsoft Flight Simulator goodness. Until then, I hope you all have a very pleasant week, and I'll talk to you all soon. Ciao!